Hi, I'm Rob and this is Gems of War. In this video I'm going to give you my opinion on what I think is good and bad in the Soulforge this week, what's worth crafting and what's worth blatantly ignoring. But first things first, it is Monday, so we always pop into the shop and make sure you grab the weekly event troop. This one is Daenerys from Game of Thrones. No, it's not, it's Saga. It is definitely Saga, but she departs more than a passing resemblance to the Queen of Marine, the Mother of Dragons, the Unburnt, the Breaker of Chains, and any other names she might have had throughout that rather awesome series, or bar the rather iffy finale, but that's a different story completely. But yeah, even her traits and things she does pass more than a passing resemblance, and mini homage to Game of Thrones, like Song of Ice at the end there. Summon an ice storm at the start of battle, immune to frozen, and gain 1 magic for each blue ally are okay set of traits, particularly the last one. Summon an ice storm at the start of the battle can be handy. It's a shame it's not every single round, but it's still useful. And she deals a decent amount of damage to all enemies, boosted by blue and frozen enemies. So certainly has her uses, and we may try her out a little bit later in the event. So check back later, because I'll be making a team for the event at the same time. But always grab these up to Mythic if you can. If you've got enough glory, totally worth doing, because I've done this already. And basically, you're going to add to your power kingdoms in the long run at the same time, as well as having another troop to use, which is always a good thing. So make sure you grab her. At the same time, you can always pop into the resources and grab the Spoils of War. This is, again, essentially free if you've got enough glory, and you can get a maximum of 10. And that gives you basically some extra keys at the same time, which is always a nice thing to have. Right, now onto the Soulforge itself. We're going to take a look at the weapons first, but not the ones that are there all the time, because they are reviewed in other Soulforge videos, but Arboreal Crystal is not there all the time. I love these exploding weapons. I know not everybody does them, likes them, because some people like to control the board and things like that all the time, but when you think how good something like Mountain Crusher is, it explodes brown gems and that is it, and it's still used in many, many teams. This explodes a load of green gems, then grants a random status effect to all elemental allies and has a summon at the same time. This for me is one of those essential weapons which is really, really cool, and I absolutely love it. So absolutely superb weapon there, Arboreal Crystal. Same which cannot be said for Doomed Statue. This thing costs 3 times as much in diamonds alone as the Arboreal Crystal, and if you could let me keep one weapon or the other, I would definitely keep the Arboreal Crystal and put this thing in the bin. Gives life to all allies, plus 2 per tempering level, then give 5 mana to all other allies. If the enemy has a doom, give 4 more mana, and give 2 magic to all allies for each yellow enemy. I'm not saying it's completely useless, but I am saying that on the doomed weapons, I massively prefer the doomed weapons that change a certain colour to doom skulls and do heavy damage and things like that. They are just a million times more useful than that. Glacial Crystal is relevant to the event that's going on at the same time as making this video. Deals damage to an enemy boosted by Glacial Peak allies, which is going to be handy because we're restricted to Glacial Peak allies in this event team. It's coming up soon. And then create a mix of blue and purple gems for each Glacial Peak ally. The only thing you have to be wary of if you craft this weapon is you do have to make sure the rest of your team is blue and purple, because basically this the weapon uses yellow and green for its mana. So you will not be able to actually gain mana from that yourself, but you do need to make sure you have blue and purple mana users in your team to get any benefit from that really whatsoever, apart from that initial damage. These ones are there all the time. Frost Staff is more of a collector's weapon really. I don't think many people are going to use it, but it does have its uses. Deal damage to an enemy and deal double damage if there's an ice storm. Create an ice storm. So create an ice storm is kind of handy, and deal double damage if there's an ice storm, but the ice storm is created after the damage, so that's not going to actually be double damage absolutely straight away, but it's an okay weapon, but nothing great at all, more collectible. Silent Knight. Deal 47 damage to the last enemy in my case and silence them. Now that sounds a bit naff, but it does have its uses. The reason why these weapons that do damage to the last enemy, for example, is say you're fighting an Arachnian Reaver team, the ones that are stealthy, and Arachnian Reaver is at the bottom, which it is in a lot of teams. You can't target that team, that troop, with normal damage. You do a spell which does damage to a certain enemy. You can't select Arachnian Reaver because it's stealthy, but this will automatically hit the last enemy, and it will target and hit that last enemy even if they're stealthy. So it is handy for getting rid of those kind of troops. Some teams are completely based around that stealthy opponent, which ordinarily they think is safe, but use a weapon like this and that will hit that last enemy whether they're stealthy or not, and it's a really good way of getting rid of them. So sounds a bit naff, but it's actually not too bad. These Curse Breaker weapons are only there because I've got the Soulforge to level 20, and I'll be looking at those in a different video. Last weapon here is Chalice of the Peaks. Remove all blue gems, so there's no benefit to removing them. You don't actually collect any blue from removing them. That is if you destroy or explode. And deal damage to an enemy boosted by the gems removed, but the ratio is not that good. And if the enemy is from Glacial Peaks, deal double damage. So you're only going to get good damage out of this if you are fighting a Glacial Peaks team, and this is more collectible than anything. But that low mana cost is not too bad, but again, it's remove all the blue gems, which is the weak point for me in this. If it was destroy the gems, you get the benefit from them, this might be a very good weapon, but as it is, not particularly great. Now onto the troops. I'm not going to bother about the troops that are here all the time, like Leonis Tower, Enraged Kurandara, Xanathos, etc., but I will look at the others. The Arc Diva. Interesting troop. Choose an ally, then give them a large amount of attack, life and armor, and fill their mana. Can only be cast once, however. So a very powerful spell, and you can see why it is only able to be cast once. May work in some teams, especially if you have a troop on your team which will then devour him afterwards, which would be quite fun. So he actually charges someone up that's like a Vashtagon or something like that maybe, and then instantly devours him after because they filled their mana up. That could be quite a fun team. But yeah, he's alright, but nothing fantastic. Pharaoh Nefertani. Oh my god, this thing's a bit naff, isn't it? Deal damage to an enemy boosted by death-marked enemies. Curse entities, all enemies. So you have to death-mark enemies to get a decent boost to the damage. And there are a lot of troops these days which are immune to death-mark, and cleanse is quite a common thing now. So quite often the enemy will be able to be cleansed anyway. So the only thing good about its traits really, death-mark a random enemy when matching 4 or more gems is okay, but you have to get a lot of those 4 matches to make that viable. Undying is pretty decent, and Souls is handy for a newer player, but the spell itself is not that great. Curse is pretty decent, but overall as a troop I don't think this one's much cop, to be honest. Queen of Sin, sort of good and bad. Fairly low mana cost for a mythic, I think. 20 is pretty decent. I think the spell is actually okay in a certain team. Deal true damage to the first 2 enemies, then summon Wrath or Lust, both of which are pretty decent troops. Then Bless or Daemon allies. So if you've got a Daemon team, this is going to be really good. Like Bless is not to be underestimated. Blessed troops are cleansed and impervious to all negative status effects, devour, mana burn and mana drain. So that is pretty decent if used in the right way, and I quite like the Queen of Sin. But she pales into insignificance next to the might of the High King Irongut. This troop, if you haven't got it already or don't know a lot about it, is the absolute king of the delves. Deals damage to an enemy with a chance to devour them equal to his attack and gains an extra turn. Forget about the initial deal damage, that's not what's important here. In a delve, basically, this guy, it actually rules the delves, because basically you're going to concentrate on getting your attack as high as possible, because the devour is equal chance to his attack. So you get your attack higher and you're going to basically have more chance of getting that devour, and you can do this. Make sure your level is nice and high in the delve and you will gain bonuses to your attack. Apply medals, Medal of Seasons, Medal of Urania to get your attack even higher, and you'll be on a decent amount of attack, and as soon as you get that devour, his stats go wildly out of control and you can just munch your way through the delves with ease. So he is absolutely the best mythic here today, and if you do not have him and you have the diamonds, absolutely go and get High King Irongut. He's utterly essential in the long run of the game. Now on to the legendaries. Don't generally recommend crafting legendaries unless it's something like outrageously outstanding, like a Yao Guai or something like that. And he's basically a mythic anyway. But let's take a look at the ones that are here. Basilisk is actually pretty decent. It deals true damage to an enemy, and if the enemy is poisoned, deal double damage. Then deal true damage again, and if they are stunned, deal double damage. So that can be a hell of a lot of damage in one go if used correctly. So Basilisk is fairly decent. Divinia is also a absolutely awesome troop. Explodes all red gems, cleanses all allies, and gives them 33 life in my case. As well as that, she has a superb third trait, cause a random positive status effect on a random ally on 4 or 5 gem matches. And do not underestimate that. That is really handy. When you get those 4 matches, that can just be anything, you know, that's really handy. It can be barrier, reflect. It's so many different things, and it just works really well. I absolutely love it. As well as that, immune to mana burn, mana drain, and mana steal is super handy. And there's not that many troops that actually are a mana generator, a cleanser, and a life giver all at the same time. And that is what Divinia is. So a superb troop all around. King Silensus. The spell is okay. It deals splash damage to an enemy boosted by the wild folk allies, steals 1 magic from all enemies affected by the spell, then burns them all. The main benefit to this guy is that third trait. All wild folk allies start with 50% mana. So if you want a Queen Beatrix team or something like that with a nice fast start, then that is a way to go about it with him. Gloomleaf. Don't see it so much anymore. I remember being terrified of this guy when I was a new and middle game player. That steel 31 armor and 5 attack from all enemies was absolutely crippling to my team as a newer player, but now I see him and he's just like, yeah, just get away, pal. Not bothered about you anymore. But if you're a new or middle game player, then this is still a decent troop, and the reflect 50% of skull damage is really handy, as it is being impervious. So it's okay. So all around, there's a decent set of legendaries in here today. So, but absolutely without shadow of a doubt, my pick of the week on the Mythics goes to High King Irongut. Utterly essential. Go get him right now if you have the diamonds. There's Soulforge review. Pop back later on if you want to see my team for the event, which is occurring at the same time as this. But most of all, thanks for watching. Catch you again next time. Bye for now.